Hi, Alexis. How you doing? Hey, this is very nicely done. Good job. I'm looking for. Okay, so I didn't see any written rationale, so we'll just go straight to your piece. So this is good. This is good. I've just been pulling these guides out to see how your alignment's stacking up, and in a lot of cases, I think that your grid is set up really consistently. It's a symmetrical, meaning that the outside will lay on top of the outside. And as you can see, I drew some guides here, and sure enough, your math is right. And that is immediately why this page is visually pleasing, is because it adds up mathematically because you have taken the time to apply the grid appropriately. So let's talk about typography. I've got a couple of suggestions and I've got a couple of comments, and I think they're going to make a lot of sense to you. The first thing I'm seeing when I open this page is there's three things that are really drawing my eye to it. This headline, this sidebar head, and this sidebar over here, the numbers. And I think that's a problem because there's no clear hierarchy. All three of these are in direct competition with each other. Okay, so that points directly to hierarchy. I would say in this case, you want your viewer obviously to look at the headline first. So this sidebar draws itself. It's called a sidebar for a reason. You don't have to say, hey, I'm here, because the viewer knows it's there. So you don't need this enormous type here to compete with this in a sidebar. You can just really, really lay back on it. We'll talk about the sidebar in a second. I think that you pick some really, really interesting typefaces to work with. My issue, I think, one of the problems I think is that this is just a word. It's not typeset. It's not a title. It's just a word. You've just typed the word numerology out. So there's no real, there's nothing that's grabbing your viewer by the throat and pulling them saying, you're going to look at me now. And that's what we need. I think you can lay off, well, you definitely can lay off on the numbers. Let's ease back on the prominent hierarchy there, and let's concentrate on numerology. Another thing I suggest is that typically, I've been using this example a lot, and so I'm just going to pull it up right now. How did I have it? I said, there it is right there, magazine. Double spread. And I just want to show you that this is the thing that we see a lot in magazine spreads. You see, the page mechanics would go like this. You would have a headline, and then the headline is typically followed by what is called a deck or an introduction. And that's a couple sentences or a couple of paragraphs. Right there, right there, right there, right here. And you see it's a really successful, it's a really effective way to take your viewer and say, okay, this is what I'm going to be showing you. So I think a good choice for you would be give us and take a look at some of the headline techniques too. They're really, really elaborate, some of them. That's beautiful right there. Look at that. Just gorgeous. So I guess what I'm saying is that we want ways to be able to really draw attention to the headline. And that's why in this assignment we're allowed to use a different typeface for the headline, presumably. But you are allowed, remember, you are allowed one additional typeface. So, okay. So I would like to see that. I'd like to see it really take that. And maybe you can even make a typographic composition including these elements and this. And work with that, okay? Next suggestion is the page is really dark. And I think that if we do this, if you keep your color palette, okay, and then let's show this on a white background, and then use one of the colors for this space back here, or one of these purples for your text color. Preferably one of the darker ones. I think it would be less noticeable, less forced. Okay, but then it wouldn't be, the starkness of black on white. Take a look at your typography. You've got some really weird spacing here. Right here. Like, why does that end there? Is this a new paragraph? I don't think so. I think it's I think that's why does that end right there? I've seen it happen a couple of times right here. Okay, so if that's a new paragraph, I suggest, editing this type to make that one paragraph. Otherwise, that is going to be sitting on a line by itself. It would be considered an orphan, and that's not good. So here's another one right here. So is that the end of a paragraph? Now remember, to demarcate paragraphs, we typically say, okay, we're either going to make a space between, like you have here, or an indent. Okay, so one way or another, you're going to have to decide, but we can't have these huge gaps here and then nothing saying, okay, I'm a new paragraph. Because, do you see what I'm saying? So that would need to be fixed. This sidebar over here, I think, is really, really, I don't mean this bad, I just don't have a better word, boring. I really want you to work on that and think about grouping and proximity. Think about how you're going to group this together and make it more interesting instead of throwing this whole chunk at your viewers saying, okay, and then let's say, how we are, man. The second we see numbers, we're like, I'm out of here. So I would suggest thinking about that. Okay, last final suggestion here is I'm thinking about moving the whole layout down. So, and then turning it into a 2-column grid on each page. So for your text column. So in other words, you'd use this area for your type. Give yourself a deck, a byline, and then maybe start your type right here. 2 columns each page. So you'd have 1 and 2, 3 and 4, 5. And it doesn't matter if you can't fit them all. You can always say continued on page. And then rethink the sidebar. That should be easy for you to do. I think you've done a wonderful job. If you have any questions at all. Oh, yeah, and the background, I'm sorry, I should explain this. The background is just making things just too difficult to read. It's difficult to read reverse to type anyways. So typically what I do if I'm going to reverse type is I typically really open up the kerning, and the leading here would be fine, but I would also consider using a sans serif typeface on reverse type and try that for legibility. Right now you can see this is really difficult to read because it's kerned so tightly and it's reverse type. So, okay, if you have any questions, give me a holler. Thanks very much. Great job.